Hey everyone, welcome to the latest episode of the Mental Brew podcast. Today we have Ciaran in with me for a chat. Um, Ciaran is going to explain now what he does himself, but just for GA fans especially and all sports science fans, this is going to be absolutely brilliant. Ciaran, thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Dennis. Yeah, I appreciated the call and being asked to come on. And actually, I haven't done many podcasts in the last few years
Uh,
since we kind of launched our own one and I'll speak about it in a minute, but took on a PhD and stuff like that. And a lot of the podcasts and webinars and stuff have been kind of parked to the side. So yeah, I'm actually really happy and excited to get back doing them. And yeah, it'll be
Brilliant.
good.
I caught you at a good time, so.
Yeah.
Kieran, why do you do what you do?
Oh God, always the open questions are the hardest. This is like a job interview where it's the most difficult one. Yeah, I mean, it's the usual thing when people say they have a passion for sport and stuff like that. And usually when sports scientists and S&C coaches are interviewed, they always say they're a failed player and that's why they weren't good enough and then they wanted it to become the next best thing, the sports scientist or the
Hmm.
S&C coach. For me, it was a little bit different, and obviously you are well aware in the GA world, it's not about becoming a professional or something, and a lot of players can end up playing at a high level, and obviously they've their normal job to take care of on the on the side. I'm not sure which is more important
Yeah,
sometimes.
yeah,
Um, but I mean, going all the way back to school, like my passion was sport, and there are lots of other things in my life that I'm really passionate about travel and politics and history and culture and everything like that, which have at times maybe held me back in my sporting career. But I've always been really passionate about sport in general, more on the end of like performance sport. It has always been rather than participation sport.
yeah,
And that probably goes back to like when I did my degree in University of Limerick in sports science in the early noughties, there was the PE cohort and there was a sports science cohort. And the
yeah.
PE were very much everybody play as much sport as possible, as many different sports, and dealing with the kids in school. Whereas on the sports science side, we were more in that kind of performance arena
Yeah.
and maximizing your performance. And that's where I was at that time because I was playing with the Wexford senior footballers as a player. So I was geared more towards that. Now it's potentially changed over the years where I worked with Dublin GA as a games promotion officer, whereby obviously you're looking there at participation sport and
Yeah.
you end up coaching 5-year-olds, some 4-year-olds, all the way from that level to under 18 or something like that. So it gave me a different perspective. So
Yeah.
so to answer your question, it's that passion about sport, but also performance as well, and performance in whatever arena you're in.
And obviously enough, for people that know you, you've spent time in QPR. How did that move come about? Because obviously enough now in Ireland, the opportunities at the really high level in terms of sports science are limited. They're probably getting a bit bigger now the way the modern GA is going. Obviously, you've the provincial rugby and all that kind of stuff. But how did that move come about for yourself? And like that's a big move to make.
Yeah, it was an interesting one, and I think you've hit the nail on the head there, whereby when I finished my degree and masters in Ireland, and that was the mid noughties or so, like I remember speaking to my parents about it, that the only real professional sport kind of track that you had was the professional rugby teams.
Yeah,
There's four provinces, so very little, and then obviously the Olympic sports, which was just not my thing, not my sport. I don't think rugby was ever my going to be my thing also. So really it was I'd got to the stage where I needed to make a choice. Um, I had done my degree, masters, worked with Dublin GA, played with Wexford, and both those things naturally came to an end of their cycle, let's say. So I
yeah,
was hitting I think I hit 30 and it was like, okay, I want to, spread my wings a little bit and go traveling and go to some different countries. And then soccer or professional football, as we call it. I'm based in London now. We'll call it over here. that was always my other passion. I prefer watching football than I did Gaelic football, even though I was better at Gaelic football and played more and coached more. So that was kind of always there in the back of my mind of, you know, getting into professional football. And as well, like I'd done a lot of coaching for Dublin J, and I was kind of ready to then flip to the other side and go, okay, well, actually now I want to go to a higher level kind of
Yeah,
performance. And like it was it was hard. It was definitely difficult. At the now it feels easier, of course, because you've been through it. But at the time it was difficult. I
yeah.
came over here to London and to the south coast of England, and I really, really had to start from scratch, like from the very bottom, whereby I was working in David Lloyd's gym as a, personal trainer or gym instructor,
Yeah.
going from like being, well enough known in GA and my family and friends in Dublin and Wexford, going to that, it was hard. But I was kind of determined. I did a master's in strength and conditioning then in Middlesex University. Uh, and at that time, along with other little bits and pieces to keep me going,
Yeah.
to put on the table, which was difficult at the time, I got an opportunity to just start an internship in QPR Academy. And I really, really didn't have time for it. I didn't, I wasn't able to take it on. But all my family support QPR. We must be like the second family in Wexford, I think, other than Ollie Murphy. He was a Wexford goalkeeper as well at the time. We were the only family who kind of supported QPR because my folks lived in Shepherd's Bush back in the 60s and 70s for a few years.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
so it was, yeah, it was a case of, okay, if it was if it was Chelsea, I would have turned it down. If it was QPR, it was like, okay, let's go and do this. Let's give it a go.
Yeah.
Um, and I guess fast forward from that, it was a case of doing the internship, working hard, putting in the hours, showing your ability, getting involved in little mini projects and everything like that, and just, a role came about then, Academy Sports Scientist, and kind of lo and behold, I was there for, best part of a decade on and off with a
Wow.
few little breaks in between. Yeah, so
Oh,
that's how that happened.
and obviously now with your knowledge of the game and the industry over in the UK, do you think if I would say if a 30-year-old left Ireland now, would it be harder to get a position like that, or would it be kind of the same? Would it be just you have to work, graft a bit of luck? Because obviously now there's in terms of criteria, in terms of your qualifications, the extra stuff you have to do. Um, so how I suppose how easy would it be for someone to do that now? Do you think?
Yeah, I would say it's similar because there are more roles now, way more roles now. And the EPPP kind of performance plan, elite player pathway plan that they've introduced in the Premier League and Football Association has brought on stream S&C coaches, sports scientists. Now they're calling them physical development coaches or physical performance coaches, a kind of a hybrid role of the two,
Yeah,
nutrition, sports psychologist. Like there's it's a bit like what's happening in the GA at the moment, whereby there's just a flood of roles. A lot of people aren't quite sure, okay, like do we need a sports scientist or an S&C coach, or do we
yeah,
what's the psychology stuff about, all this kind of stuff. Whereas we've kind of gone through that over here and
yeah,
we've come to the other side, and it's like, well, obviously you need a psychologist, and obviously you need a performance analyst and nutritionist and etc. But like if you think of in every professional football team here now, you will have like at least one sports scientist and S&C coach. I'm just going to call them that for the moment.
yeah,
At first team level, B team, under 18, under 16, maybe, below that as well, under like 12s to 16s, or even foundation phase, which is basically age like 9 to 11 or 12. And also in the women's game as well, you've got people being put into those roles. So
yeah,
it's difficult to say, is it harder now? There are more roles, but of course, there are more graduates now. Like
yeah,
every university in the land now has a sports science
yeah,
course or an S&C. The one problem that we're finding always is that like you used to have to do a sports science degree. Okay, great, you get into a job. Now it's like, well, you need a degree and a master's
Yeah.
and an accreditation, you
Yeah.
know, from the US and from the UK accreditation and bases, or cases,
Yeah.
the Sports Science Chartered Association. And finally, now it's like, at what stage is it? Well, you don't have a PhD, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
It it's getting higher and higher, but the opportunities, there are lots of opportunities. Like if you want to put in the time and the hours, um, entry level money is not good, but there is the possibility and the ability to rise through the ranks and actually do very well
Yeah.
in I guess an industry that you're passionate about.
Yeah, because actually today I got an email from the ISESA. So I'd be a sports psychology consultant. I put in my
Yeah.
application to be accredited. They came back to me today and we all approved. My assignment was ticked off, blah, 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 blah. So delighted with that, right? But from
Yeah.
your experience and, you know, we say in the UK and maybe obviously your experience with GA and stuff, how important is accreditation for we'll say a club or a GA club to be mindful of, or a county or a professional organisation mindful of? I suppose what I'm conscious of is I'd have a background in S&C as well. I'd have the masters in it, but I never went anywhere with it. I was interested in it. I really enjoyed it,
Yeah.
but wasn't as passionate about it as I am about the psychology piece. But it was what I'm seeing a lot is someone does a 6 month course or 6 week course, and all of a sudden they're a guru and they're looking to work with athletes or looking maybe to work with vulnerable people or whatever it may be. Now they might offer value to an extent, but I suppose how do you view accreditation with that example in mind?
Yeah, I mean, look, I am a fan of accreditations and like CPD and like just high level education and coaching courses, and I'm a big supporter. I see like not so much in the S&C sports psychology world, but in like the coaching side of stuff,
Yeah,
you'll have people who have maybe got into higher levels and then they're interviewed and the first thing they say, and it's kind of like a badge of honor, is that, oh well, I don't have the foundation award or the award one or the UEFA B, or I learned what I need to know on the pitch. And you're like, yeah, okay, that's fine, I get a bit of that. But like I'm sure you're the same. I've never been on a course or a workshop or a conference where I haven't learned something. Like
yeah,
it's not like,
very true.
you go to a conference and go, there are 20 speakers. I loved all 20. I learned stuff of each speaker, maybe not, but there's always snippets that you'll learn and you'll take on board.
Yeah,
Um, in terms of accreditation, like I'm happy there is the Irish Sports Science Association and also the Irish S&C network, in Ireland. And then obviously over here you have the UK SCA, you've got the BASES, which is now changed to CASES,
mm,
the Sport and Exercise Science Association. It does mean that that person has hit a minimum like level of competency,
yeah,
and they've gone through a system. Now, I do think if you've got a master's in S&C, sports psychology, sports science, etc., like then you've already proven that you've hit a certain level,
yeah,
and that you're able to, design, like in the S&C world, design programs, fitness development, gym programs, monitoring maybe GPS stuff, maybe wellness, tracking, etc., and be able to coach. So it's like if somebody is coming to me and they have a master's in something, then I'm like, okay, that's fine. They've
yeah,
hit the level. But having said that, of course it's good. It's like that extra little thing that shows that okay, this person is like top quality stuff and has
yeah,
gone through a process and a pathway and a journey. I mean, for for anybody starting out, I would say 100% get on those pathways as soon as possible. Get your coaching courses, start the accreditation pathway, because it's much easier, as I'm sure you found as well, to kind of do tick all that off at the beginning. Like when
yeah,
you're at university
yeah,
or afterwards, it's like, you know, if when you're once you're working in the field, you become very busy and it
yeah,
can be difficult. Like it just the final point I'd say on that, like the GA world is in a dangerous kind of situation at the moment, I feel,
Yeah,
because everybody has an S&C course or badge or
yeah,
degree or whatever. There are like the intercounty scene is fine, leave that aside, but and even the development squads. But like in terms of the clubs, you've obviously got people making there's decision making makers in the club and coaches and managers who they have no expertise in that, and that's fine. They don't need to, or it'd be great if they did, but you can't have expertise in everything. But then you've got people coming along and saying, well, at the beginning of preseason, I need those players for 6 weeks because I'm going to get them fit,
yeah,
the FP coach. And I'm like, no, you don't. You really don't. Like, you need to be there for the whole season and working in tandem with the coach together.
yeah,
So, I know that Des Ryan and some of the gang who have been working with Croke Park over the last few couple of years are like rolling out a new course in terms of athletic development. And that kind of thing is a real positive now, where
yeah.
kind of you're in some ways centralizing that whole like process, I think.
Yeah, because I remember when we were doing our masters, I think I finished mine up now about a year and a half ago. But it was brilliant in Waterford. But I remember Kira was telling us that there is stuff coming down the line that they're looking to have certain standards now in terms of people getting involved in GA teams and county teams and whatnot. So that'll be an interesting development to see.
Yeah.
Just going back to your time at QPR, Kieran, what was it like in terms of pressure in such an environment? Because like realistically, if a sports scientist is there and S&C coach is there, they're all being paid to do a certain job. But like, what was it like in terms of the pressure in that environment?
Yeah, I think in my situation, I didn't feel the pressure that much because for a few reasons that being involved in Wexford senior intercounty team, it's like you kind of grew up in this somewhat professional and pressurized environment. So I've always felt quite at home in that environment. So it wasn't new to me. Whereas I think when people come into that environment as just a graduate who has studied everything,
Yeah,
it can be more, the transition into that can be more difficult. Like
yeah,
for me, it's not a completely different environment. There are different things about it, and it's professional, obviously, so it's different than the GA world. But I felt quite at home having been a player and coaching and stuff like that in that kind of performance environment. The other difference was that for most of my time there up until the end, I was working in the academy, and obviously the academy versus the first team level is a different world, because on a Saturday, QPR first team get beaten 3-0, and the fans start saying, oh, they're not fit enough. And then that's reported. The reporter asked the manager and said, oh, are your team fit enough? And like the first thing, first thing that the manager might do, hopefully not, her head coach, will be like, call out the S&C coach or sports scientist, or in private, I would hope, come back and speak. So there's a different level of pressure there. The only thing I would say, I remember when I was with Wexford and um, Bealo, Paul Beelan brought us, he was manager, great man from Dublin. He brought us and we met Aidan O'Brien, the horse trainer,
yeah,
Coolmore Studs. I was part of a little training camp and stuff like that. And that question came up about like pressure and stuff like that. And he had a brilliant answer. Now I'm going to ad lib it, but it was essentially just that he's dealing with horses that at the time, like there was one horse there worth 20 million quid. I can't remember her name. I don't know horse racing that well.
yeah,
Um, and his approach to that, the owner was like, from the Middle East, was like, tell him everything. Give him every bit of information. Tell him when the horse is feeling great, is performing well. Tell him in the weeks leading up to I don't know, the Grand National or Aintree or whatever it is. Tell him like, okay, he's, a little bit, he was under the weather there, or he didn't feel right, or he didn't ride out well. And like, give that person all that information. And then like there's no surprises, there's no shocks, there's no like, whoa, where did that performance come out of?
yeah,
In ways like performance sport is that way as well, and especially in sports science, where you're documenting, you're um you're monitoring, you're tracking, you're profiling, and you're constantly communicating that. not just with the player, but with the coaches, the medical team,
Yeah,
and all of you together in a good sense, if it's
yeah,
working well, as an MDT, multidisciplinary team, are like then discussing that player and
yeah,
discussing the team. And like again, you'll know from the sports psychology, it's brilliant when it works in terms of you've the head coach, the assistant coach, the goalkeeping coach, maybe two sports scientists, an S&C, a sports psychologist, a nutritionist, maybe two or three medical, and you're all sitting around. And that was the thing that I loved, especially when I started out, was
yeah,
that you might have 10 to 12 people sitting around discussing like a 17-year-old player who's not a professional. And just that level of support and the level of detail and looking back to the last match and training and performance and looking forward to the type of session that's coming later that morning. And just that level of detail that you can go into each player. So it's you don't feel the pressure when you're all going into one direction.
yeah,
I guess the problem occurs, of course, is when the team of first team level team is performing badly. The cohesiveness of the staff can break down, and like I did experience that because I left QPR in 2015. I went to India, and I worked with Kerala Blasters football team in the Indian Super League for a
brilliant.
season. And Peter Taylor was the manager who had been like England under 21 coach and
Yeah,
Leicester, Hull, and some of them. And Terry Phelan, the great Terry Phelan, Irish international.
yeah,
And there were a few others. And it wasn't a cohesive group. And the
okay,
team started to do badly. Peter Taylor left. And it descended a little bit into like whose fault and
yeah,
why did we do that and why didn't we do this? And so that was yeah, that was a lesson for me in terms of pressure and performance.
unreal. Now, the next question I'm gonna ask you, we're gonna jump to the GA, right? And I find this fascinating. So I was lucky enough to be involved with the Cork minor footballers just as an S&C assistant, when Bobby Dwyer was manager. And I could see with the management team who he picked and why he picked them. I could just see it. I was kind of that stage in my career and I was watching that stuff. I suppose two questions within this. What was the first thing you did when you took over the county teams? What was the first job you did? And how important was it getting the right people around you when you were kind of progressing with the management team and planning and etc.?
Yeah, I mean, those two questions are linked and kind of lead into the answer, actually, just off the top of my head. Like the first thing I did, it was funny because I was still in India when I took on the London senior footballer manager role. So the first thing I did was rang around all the players. I had to speak to each individual player, and I was like in my hotel room in Goa and Mumbai and Delhi, and like after training, after matches, like picking up the hotel phone in my room. Luckily, they had them. I was like ringing lads, back in London and Ireland. Um, and like that was just like first of all, just introducing myself to them, to some of them. Now I
Yeah,
had been the head coach under Paul Coggins the year before, so an awful lot of them I knew. So that
yeah,
was so with those lads, it was like, okay, we need you. Make sure you come back next season because with London, there's such a big turnover. So
yeah,
that was one purpose of that. But the second one was like to kind of sell them a dream, to sell them a journey and a plan and a philosophy. The buzzword at the moment is like, what's your coaching philosophy or something like that.
yeah,
But essentially it was that. And like in my mind, it's not one or the other. It's a constant mix of like how you make them feel, but also your competency. Because I'm always hearing people say, that it's all about just how you make the player feel. And like, okay, that's great. You can tell them that you're best mates with them and let's have socials and what do
mm,
you want to do on the pitch? And but like ultimately players are very, very selfish. Like all sports people are extremely selfish. And
yeah,
you have to be, to progress and perform and do the best you can. You have to be really selfish
yeah,
because if you think about it, like you spend your 20s telling people no. Like, no, I can't go to if somebody's 30th birthday. I
yeah.
can't go
Very
to,
true.
I can't go to this Christmas party. It's like, no, 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 no. you're not around for your partner as much. You don't meet up with your friends, so they're selfish. So like in a necessary kind of way.
Yeah,
So like it's all very well how you make them feel, but unless you can show them that you're going to make them better as players individually and also improve the team, they won't want to know, and you'll get found out. So it was a case of like selling them that journey, I suppose, rather than a dream, maybe
yeah,
with people especially, and like trying to go on that journey. And my big thing was increasing the professionalism of it. So
okay,
taking a lot of those lessons from pro sport and then implementing it into the GA world. And like I still try and do that now in my coaching business and stuff like
yeah,
that. But that was my first big thing. And the second big thing, or like going hand in hand, obviously, was getting the backroom team, getting the right people. And my approach to that was having specific people for very specific roles. So
yeah,
like Noel Dunning came in with me, and Noel had been a previous London manager. He had been my club manager for a season or two in London when we won the senior title here, Kingdom Kerry Gales. And I had a very specific role for him in mind as kind of acting as my mentor on the side, not taking trainings, but like just analyzing our team, having a look at other teams. He had very good connection with other teams, other managers, and just a sounding board for me to be able, you know, bat things off and get advice and his opinion on. So it was trying to wrap myself around in that supportive network and system, and like bringing in Ross Bennett from QPR, who was a head of performance sports scientist. I knew that he would bring that really elite level mindset and approach to like sports science and S&C, and that the players would dig that and enjoy it. And then it was a case of trying to raise up that level in terms of sports science and analysis and all, but also then bring, our own high level of coaching, because ultimately that's what the players really, really want. And it was a case of getting some sports psychologists as kind of work experience, getting nutrition. You
yeah,
know, we
yeah.
didn't have the budget, we didn't have that, but actually, what something that was unique is actually we had access to pro clubs and people in pro clubs that maybe some of the teams in Ireland didn't have.
Okay, that's really, really good. You obviously ended up taking over Wexford as well.
I
How,
no, so I I helped out. I was coaching with John Hegarty with Wexford, so I never actually managed.
sorry, you
Uh,
were a coach, that was it.
so I spent a season with John Hegarty, um, and I was helping Paul Galvin just for a short period, or a little bit behind the scenes as well for another season.
Yeah,
That was, I guess, it was a really nice experience to be involved with my home county. Being based in London just never allowed me to kind of fully, put my heart and soul into it full
yeah,
time, or whatever you want to call it. Um, I had a few opportunities to become manager, there was at different times, and I would have loved to, but just personal circumstances here and being based
yeah,
here being kind of didn't allow for that. But it was very nice to be involved with Wexford. I used to I'd travel over once a month for a week or a few days,
yeah,
taking multiple sessions. Um, John was brilliant, very understanding of the situation, and also was open to like kind of new ideas and slightly different approach and implementing sports science support and everything. Um, and then when it came to the end of the season, it was okay. He kind of needed to put more time into the staff that he had there, and I had my PhD to complete and everything. So
yeah.
yeah, a nice experience, I would call that. Yeah.
And obviously, we talk about this off camera, as well as sports scientist, also business owner. So I want to talk about DSS first. So DD Sports Science. I can't remember how I came across it, but I remember looking at it, and there was some free samples on the website to kind of sessions and stuff. So I said, "Look, I'm going to take the plunge here. I'm going to join. We should see what it's like." And then what I said to you off camera was, it was probably one of the best resources I've ever seen for GA. And like even now, thinking back on it, there was such a huge gap in the market for it. Like, and I think the best part for me when I was there was the WhatsApp group. That was like the knowledge and the stuff that was going into that WhatsApp group was frightening. How have you, I suppose, enjoyed the journey of DSS? Where would you like to go in the future? And like realistically, you're influencing hundreds upon hundreds of GA clubs, players, even more players, obviously, through the resource that you're kind of providing.
Yeah, well, firstly, thank you for the nice, kind words and the feedback's always nice to hear that people had a positive experience with it. That was that was during my time with London, whereby I was I found that I started to put a little bit of stuff out on social media, mostly Twitter for DSS, DSS coaching. Now we've kind of slightly rebranded, and I found that, like, as you say, there was a hunger and a market and an opening for that of lots of GA coaches, like just desperate for more information, more knowledge, more expertise. And they really were into like the kind of professional aspect of that. So coaching, but the sports science and the S&C and the medical and analysis and and everything like that. And I suppose that's our kind of unique selling point, even to this day, is of that trying to be more professional and trying to bring high quality stuff and not just coaching drills and games, which we have, but also, the fitness programs, the gym programs, the why, the what, the how,
Yeah.
the analysis, the like we bring in sports psychologists and nutritionists. We'll have to bring you on for
Yeah,
a
yeah,
coming
definitely.
webinar. It'll be great. And I guess what we're trying to do is you've got the GA coach and he's working with either kids or adults club team, maybe an intercounty development team. We have some senior intercounty coaches as well. And they know coaching maybe
Yeah,
and maybe they want to like bring their level up in coaching, but also they don't know sports science or S&C or medical stuff or whatever. And it's like, okay, you don't need to be a nutritionist, but it's good if you have a little bit of knowledge and awareness of it. And also, by the way, here's a resource that you can use with your team. So we're constantly giving people resources then that they can actually adapt and edit and use with their team, whether that's kids or adults.
yeah. Do,
And
do you know? Do
yeah,
you know one resource? Sorry, I interrupted. One resource I loved, and I still have it saved on my laptop, or it's my Google Drive. Sorry, is the Excel sheet you gave of the session breakdown and the session layout.
oh, yeah,
And
yeah.
it was just a one pager, but you go in, you just drop the menu, you click what you want, and it was so simple, and it was just one page. Everything's there, the timing's there. I just found that brilliant. And what I also loved was on the website you had breakdown of some of the sessions you did with London.
Yeah,
Some of those sessions were fantastic, like
yeah,
really, really, really good.
yeah. That was, and again, I guess it's trying to show people, a level of professionalism. And
Yeah,
when I say professionalism, I don't mean that dirty word in GA world of like, the money thing. It's like high level competency. Let's call it that. It doesn't sound as nice. So like you're showing them that kind of high level stuff and going, well, this is the reason why we do this. We don't just come rock up to the pitch and like, I'm just going to do an attacking phase of play, on the counter where the defense are out of balance and let's watch what happens. It's like, okay, well, why would you do that? And where does that fit in to your training week? And where does it fit into your phase or across the season? And as I always say, like coaching and training and coaching sessions, it's a jigsaw. You've got all these different little pieces, and it's like the the speed aspect, the fitness, the attacking, the defending, the out of balance defending,
yeah,
the slow passage of play. Like all of these little small pieces of the jigsaw, they just get plugged into the
yeah,
relevant position, and then overall you've got like a beautiful picture, hopefully, and it's like coaches ask me, okay, should I work on X, Y, and Z? And it's like, yeah, you have to, like my teams were very attacking teams. I always, played like that. I wanted my teams to play like that. But of course, I had to look after all aspects of defense and transition and, all of that stuff and the sport science and whatever. So it's given that people that knowledge of what those pieces of the jigsaw are, but
Yeah,
also where they fit and when they fit. And that's what we're trying to kind of teach people, I guess, and guide people. And of course, our approach as well is that it's not like here's a drill, here's a game, here's another game, here's another drill, here's a shooting practice, and your novice coach, that's what they want. They
yeah,
want that.
yeah,
We will give them that. We give them that because they need it. But also it's like, okay, but why? Why or not just why, but like how do you develop your own practices, your own games and drills, to give that coach the ability to think, okay, in this match situation, I'm fast attack on the counter where, I'm really going to go centrally, get my supporting players in down the channels, down the attacking lanes. So that's the game situation. So how
yeah,
do I build a game scenario, a match scenario then? And how do I develop it into an attacking phase of play when the defense is out of balance? And it's
yeah,
just kind of building those practices and having that ability. And like one of the biggest things we did, and you referred to it, was that people signed up and then they just lapse. They don't maybe use it, they don't sign into the website and everything like that. And that's natural for everything. Um, and then I said, okay, let's kind of get them engaged more. Let's set up a WhatsApp group. And it started off as 20, and then it went to 100, and then it went to 200. And like during COVID, it was like, amazing stuff.
yeah.
And then we came out of COVID and it just stayed. We've 600 coaches in our
Wow.
group and like on the website and in the WhatsApp group. And it's actually maintained, and I thought it would drop down, and it got to the stage, and I guess this is kind of to the future of it. It got to the stage where I couldn't do it on my own, and I brought in Joe Coulter and Ross Bennett, who were with me in London and QPR, and Stevie Poacher, who's manager of Leitrim, and Barry
Yeah,
Milan for the hurling, and Brendan Delaney for the hurling, and all of a sudden you have this like kind of group and of coaches, and we update every day. We produce new content every weekday, and we put it into the groups and onto the website. But it's like, and again, you made reference to it, like in those WhatsApp groups now, it's like all the coaches are helping each other. You
yeah,
know, just today, somebody had said that their friend is going back coaching under eights. So right down at the bottom of the pyramid, if we want to call it that, or towards the bottom, and they don't have experience in that. And before I had an opportunity to reply and kind of say, okay, well, maybe take this approach, I think about six different people popped in resources into the group and go, yeah, check that out. Have a look at this. And this belongs to, this club or organization or
yeah,
association. So it's like, they're all, it's a, as I would call it, a community of practitioners where
yeah,
everybody now is helping each other and everything. And I guess for me, long term, it's it won't ever be the thing that I will just work at full time
yeah,
because I just have other things that I enjoy doing. But we're hoping, in this coming year and into next year, provide more workshops, conferences, stuff like
Mhm.
that, getting out into the clubs.
Class.
Yeah, and we just feel like I guess it's a little bit of legacy of the COVID period where people weren't getting out there as much, and
Yeah,
now that's finally gone, and we think it's an opportunity to kind of go out and start visiting people more now.
that's brilliant. We're coming near to the end now, but I want to talk to you about Sport Horizon. Can you tell me a little bit about this other venture that you have? I've seen some of your stuff on LinkedIn about it. It seems fierce interesting.
Yeah, so that's the other business, and I co-own that with a friend of mine, and we set that up, and that was so had started a PhD during or at the beginning of COVID, and so I was completing that through QPR and Northumbria University and everything, and I was at a conference then in Portugal doing a showing a study that we had done together with my PhD
Yeah,
and QBR, and I met this guy there, Johannes from Norway, and he was more like the data analysis, and we kind of our two worlds met a little bit, where I was sports science coach, he was
yeah,
like analysis and sports science, and we just found that practitioners out there, sports scientists around the world were crying out for like data analysis skills more
yeah,
and migrating from just like Excel to Power BI to Tableau to like high
yeah.
level business intelligence solutions, like being able to analyze the data, visualize it, report it, have a
Wow.
conversation. So so it grew from there, and like it's again, it's grown into like a six-figure company all of a sudden, where we're kind of like, whoa, we are going to have to start like taking on a few people here. And, we have help, but we need more help. Um, and essentially, like in a nutshell, we provide courses and CPD and stuff for practitioners, sports scientists, in like Power BI and how to use GPS
Yeah,
data, gym and wellness. And like we've got people sign up to our courses and everything from like Chelsea, DFA, Man United, PSG, like some of the sports in America and Australia and Africa and everywhere.
that's brilliant.
Um, yeah, so it's grown a lot and everything. And yeah, it's going very well at the moment.
Ciaran, I suppose before we finish up, I have five quick fire questions. Where can people find out more about yourself, more about the two businesses, and more importantly, for any coach listening, more importantly, where can they join DSS?
Thanks for the plug. Yeah, so with the business, the community of practitioners, it's dsscoaching.ie. So it's dsscoaching.ie. You'll find that account on Facebook, on Twitter. Um, then in terms of the Sport Horizon, as regards to data and the analysis on LinkedIn, you'll find myself well, firstly Sport Horizon on LinkedIn. Um, and then just for myself, like I use LinkedIn a lot for Sport Horizon, and I use Twitter then for DSS coaching. And I'm pretty present there on both. It's just Kieran Deely, and you'll find me there. And yeah, probably the easiest way of getting in contact is just like a DM on Twitter, let's say, or LinkedIn.
Yeah,
That's like the quickest. And yeah, so we're all very connected. It's very easy to grab us.
that's brilliant. And Ciaran, five quick fire questions for you.
Right.
What's the biggest lesson you've learned from professional sport?
Oh, um, discuss the players at length. So go into the individual players and have a strong support network around that player to support them during kind of tough times.
If you could describe lead or describe high performance in one sentence, what would it be?
Oh, Jesus. Um, High performance. I guess the self-actualization of just fulfilling that potential, and that can be through both hard work and talent.
Wexford hurling or Wexford football?
Oh, Wexford football always. The hurlers get enough support. Although obviously I do love the Wexford hurling, and I remember as a young lad, 96, George O'Connor, 96, Martin Story. So but obviously the great Matty Ford and co.
Some footballer. He was some. What is is there any particular moment in your career that you'd like to go back and change?
Oh yeah, a few in my playing career. Um, I was captain of Wexford football team in 2007, and kind of part captain in 2006, because my club mate Leo O'Brien was a sub on for particular games. And in both years we lost Leinster semi-finals against Laois and Offaly, and it was I would have loved in those years to get to a Leinster final and a chance against the Dubs in packed out Croke Park at that stage in Leinster. That was a real pity. In terms of my club, we won four county titles. At We won a two in a row. I would have loved to have done a three in a row. We just kind of let the ball slip a little bit, and we could have been even more successful. And in terms of my coaching career with London, the new Ruislip opened, and the first game was a championship game against Leitrim. We had Muggsy was playing for us. We had a really nice team, and we were in a really good place. And we conceded two relatively late goals from our own mistakes coming out with the
Yeah,
ball out of defence. And I felt if we had got through that game, we weren't winning Connacht or anything like that.
yeah, yeah,
Just would have brought the team on
yeah,
so much
yeah,
more.
yeah.
So yeah, that was a pity. Let's call it.
You know, I was this. The time is absolutely flowing. I could talk to you for another 2 hours, but I promised you an hour. Thanks so much for coming on. I'll definitely get you on again. I'll share your info when the episode goes out. Actually, sorry, one more question. There was only four. That was only
Yeah.
four. Last one. What's the best thing about being a father?
Oh, I love being a dad. I absolutely love it. And my little chap is Caden. He's age 4, and I've got two stepdaughters, Leela and Jaya, age 16 and 14. The the best thing, they get you up in the morning, to face the day. Certainly, I do love being in the back garden here in North London on the trampoline and messing around with we grow some vegetables and fruit and stuff like that. And
Brilliant.
yeah, that's probably my most enjoyable part.
And that's the absolute perfect way to finish up. Kieran, thanks so much for coming on, bud.
Thank you, Dennis. Yeah, I appreciate it a lot. Thanks very much.
Cheers, buddy.